Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Shoes. Welcome back to the Serengeti Zoo here on Planet Zoo on our franchise mode. Welcome back. Today we are diving in a little bit more into the building, but we are going to be building another habitat today. This is going to be an action-packed video, so be sure to stay tuned, subscribe if you haven't already. We're going to get straight into things. So in the beginning of this video, I just want to go over a few things. We're just going to really do a few buildings toward the front. One's going to be an information desk, and then we're also going to customize our staff center just a little bit, and then the keeper's hut right by this building that we're looking at right now. So that being said, we are really just doing some basic buildings, and we're probably going to have to fix them up later. This is really just to experiment with the building system that they have in this game. So that's really what's happening today. But we're going to dive into something much bigger, and everything's going to be pretty cool. We do now have babies for our wildebeest and our sable antelope. And finally, I do have a plan of how I want to continue this series on the zoo. So I do have a few sketches that I made, and I think I have the plan. So if at any time you guys have any suggestions, please be sure to leave them down below. But let's get straight into things. We're going to be starting our biggest project. Let's take a look at it. So diving right into things, you will notice that I already kind of have a building set up. Don't worry, I'm going to catch you up, but it did take a lot of building for something that doesn't need too much talking about. So right now we are going to be building a big castle for our village, for our zoo. So this is going to be like our hub, and then we're going to build a village like around this mud castle, essentially. Therefore, we have it very symmetrical. So it's a big square in the middle, which is going to be a courtyard, and we're gonna have a grand front entrance that looks pretty neat. There were a few times when I had to kind of go back and forth, try to get things just right, but essentially it's a big mud building, and we're not gonna do too much right now. Right now I'm on a sandbox zoo, so I'm really just building this. I get a blueprint down, and then we bring it into our zoo, which we will show you later. This building ends up costing me like $9,000 to $10,000 in-game currency for our franchise mode. So we did have to make sure we had the money, and fortunately we did. And we have some plans going on for this castle. Really, there's really not too much to it, as in for the decorations, but we kind of get down the general idea, because once we actually bring it into our zoo, it's going to look much different. We're going to end up putting plants around it, we're going to make it look very pretty, and then we're going to end up theming certain areas of the building to fit with, other areas. So toward the front, we are going to have a direct path straight to this building. Essentially, this is our hub. So people come in and they choose 4 directions to go. We do have 4 entrances, 4 exits. In the middle, I don't know if I really want to put anything in there. If anything, maybe gardens. I was thinking possibly, a quick service area, but I thought it would just be, too condensed for that, believe it or not. And we'll get a better visual of that when we get to it. The whole purpose of this is that we want people to come in, they go into this beautiful courtyard, so basically they come through one area and then they see 3 other areas that they can go through. And above each little entrance to that area, it's gonna be like, oh, this is more of a tropical area for Africa, or it can be more like, oh, we're gonna go to, a little oasis area, and then you can go to the elephant area or something like that. So there's a few concepts I have in mind, but it's really hard to figure out where it's going to go right now. So we're just going to skip into things, and we're going to really talk about more about the habitat that we're building in, because that's really what I want to get to today. We're going to be customizing this building as we go along, but essentially it just feels like a big hotel castle type thing, which honestly I think it works out pretty well. And let's go see the finished product. Okay, so now we're back in our Serengeti Zoo. Now we put in this building, it looks really nice. We got the roof down, I think, pretty good. And we also do have, a nice little courtyard here. You will notice that the path is pretty wide, so that is an 8-meter width path. And since it comes in, it doesn't really give you a lot of room on the sides. So it's about 12 square meters in the corners. So not really enough room to build a quick service area in, so I'm thinking we build some nice little statues and little gardens and stuff like that, and I think it would work out really well. But it is a little bit further back toward the front of the entrance, so we do set it back a little bit, and then you get we're going to build a few habitats toward the front, so you kind of get an idea of what the zoo is about. I thought a great place to put for our new habitat is right toward the little corner here, and we're going to add some Nile monitors. They are a small animal. It's something that you would probably find at the front of a park. So let me just give you an example of this, and the only thing I can think of is Animal Kingdom in Disney World, and there's usually small animals as you walk right in. I know it's more attraction based, but there's also animals in it, but you kind of walk in and you see some small little animals. So that's really what I had in my mind the whole entire time, and I thought the Nile monitors would do great. You can come up to this building, and this is going to be a small habitat where some animals roam freely, but it's also going to feel a little bit more like a garden at the same time, not with as many plants, but it's almost like it was made for it to be here, and you'll kind of understand that here in a moment. Now, it's really hard because these Nile monitors do require about 400 square meters, and about 75-ish is going to have to be water, and then 300-ish is going to have to be land that they can walk on. So my idea was to build a natural barrier right toward the front, and what we're going to do is we're going to set some rocks right by some water so people can't, really get into the habitat, and nor can the Nile monitors get out. We're going to build a staff entrance from the building itself. So one thing that I was doing when I made this building is I made it very plain and basic, so therefore we could edit it later. But as of right now, it works out pretty well for what it's worth. But with these nice rocks here, we really do set it up so you really can just get these animals toward the water and really not having an issue with the animals being able to get out, which ended up working really nicely. We're only going to do the basics of this habitat, unfortunately. I feel like we can do some editing later with it. I could have improved on some areas, definitely, but as of right now, since we have a big idea in mind, it's kind of hard to get down to the little nitty-gritty of details. So that is definitely something that we're going to improve later on. So for an example, we do have this wood barrier that goes around the habitat, except for where the rocks are, and except for where the building is, obviously. But obviously we could probably change that into something else, build it into maybe just mud, or make some sort of fence that is customizable to our liking, and really have that work out. But I really have to make sure that we give the entrance to our hub a nice feel. The barrier is kind of tall, so I'll have to, bring that down. These Nile monitors are small. I just did the basic height, which I kind of just realized. So we will fix that. But we want to make sure we really give it a natural feel. Unfortunately, when we had these guys come in, there were areas to get out. This guy could climb on the rock, so we had to kind of fix it around and stuff like that. And what we end up doing also is we end up giving a custom fence to the front of this rock structure. And unfortunately it's getting dark out, so I'm going to skip forward so you guys can see better. But we end up making sure the food gets in there, we make sure the staff is in there. We want to make sure we get the land just right, and unfortunately it was just a little bit, it just wasn't enough water, enough land for these guys to walk around. So toward the left side we end up giving them some more room, and then we extend the water just a little bit, because that would just help fit in the right nature of this habitat. So with the custom made fence toward the front here, we end up using our basic metal fence, which ends up just working out really well for rock structures, because you don't usually see wood that sticks right through rock. You usually see metal that sticks straight through rock. Like, it was kind of made to be like that. Wood doesn't usually go through rock. Not typically. It's really difficult to make it look like that, but we end up using wood posts just because I couldn't find any metal posts that weren't thick enough to kind of hide that little binding between the fences. So we end up building this nice little fence to make sure it doesn't look like our people can just kind of walk on the rock and just kind of join the Nile monitors and have a great old time, because that's not what we want. So we kind of make it look nice, and at the same time we also have to make sure these people actually have education, and then donation bins, trash cans, and whatnot, which is something that we had to take into consideration. Overnight I didn't have that happen, so I may have lost some money on the way. Nobody could donate. But nonetheless, we do have this little area, this little corner toward the side where I want to edit it and try to put something there, because it is a weird transition and a little bit of a weird break from the pathways and from the barriers. So we are going to figure that out later. Once again, this is very basic habitat, but I want to show you guys how it's coming along. And I didn't spend too much time talking about the building, but it's got windows and it's got color to it. Basically, this whole episode is putting our big idea on this land, and then we're going to start getting down to a little bit of detail around the area. That being said, we are also going to add another habitat somewhere else along the lines toward the front of the park, which is really needed. As for the habitat itself, it is very plain and basic, so we really have to bring some sort of color to this. Fortunately, the rocks do give it a nice break, and the water does a really good job. As I say this, I just realized that I forgot to put on a water pump, so I will have to do that. I always forget to do that, so I will do that. But as I was saying, the rock and the water give it a great break toward the front for our people to view these great animals. And something that I didn't know about these animals is that these guys actually do get hunted. So it does play in a little bit to our, nature reserve, like this is a place for animals to be safe. This is kind of like the whole idea of the name of the park. So these guys do get hunted for their skin and meat, so we end up putting a little education board on the side about that. But as for the plants, we do end up a little bit of green in there, which is really nice. We put the green in the water also, which really gives it that more of a lively feel. In water and grassland biome, especially in Africa, you will see plants around the water. It would be very rare to find them not around the water, so therefore it really gave it just a little bit of color to make it look nicer, which I was very happy about. As for education, we put in 2 boards. We put one toward the middle, and then we put one on the left-hand side. And then we also do put up that little conservation board on the way right, so we make sure we do that also. But other than that, this is a shorter episode. I do apologize. There is a lot that just happened, but not too much to talk about because there's really not too much detail going into it right now. But just realize that this is going to be a building that we're going to be kind of basing our idea off of now. So we are going to be adding more decoration in this. We are going to be adding a ton more into it. And I hope you guys really enjoy where this zoo is going to go. So be sure to stay up to date by subscribing. And be sure to like this video to help support me out if you want to help support out a starting YouTuber like I am. Any comments, suggestions, leave me down below. I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.